What's up team? I've got a little video here breaking down the top position of toaster bar for you, a little bit of physics to hopefully explain why it's going to be a bit more beneficial for you to do it this particular way. So let's take a look. Alright guys, so I found a super handsome dude to demo our toaster bar for us today. So what I'm going to do is let this video play out just a quick second to see some reps. I'll pause it towards the end at the top position, and then we can dive into a little bit of the physics behind why this is going to be a beneficial way for you to perform your toaster bar. Let's take a look. Oh, I've nailed it with a pause there. Super happy with that. Okay, let's take a look at this then. So, this is going to be the kind of toaster bar that I want to advocate to you guys today and hopefully discuss some reasons why this is going to be more efficient. This is going to be the way that I perform the majority of my toaster bars. Of course, under fatigue, it's going to look a little bit different towards the end of a big set, but I managed to consistently hit 50 plus reps in a single set with this method because it maximizes efficiency and mechanics, and hopefully I can explain a little bit more of that to you today. At first glance, people will probably say this is actually a much harder way to perform toaster bar, and I can understand why, especially when you're asking for the straight leg and this maximum compression. There are going to be people that say it just doesn't happen when they try that method, and they're going to do the more conventional toaster bar, which I'm going to draw out for you guys in just a minute. And I can understand why, but I'm also going to show you some reasons why that is the case and how we can overcome that, okay? So, first off, let's just draw out this shape that we have right here in front of us by our lovely demo assistant. So we've got that nice straight arm with minimal press back on the bar, okay? And then we've got a pretty vertical torso angle, and then lovely straight legs compressed right on up. So it's a very closed shape. Everything is close together. And I want you to take an eye on the height of the hip right here. Now I'm going to exaggerate this next bit a little bit. I'm going to draw it out in red. This is going to be your more conventional slash alternative way to do your toaster bar, and that's going to be that huge press back. I know people aren't quite this bad, but just for demonstration purposes, okay, there's the head there. So this is going to look a little bit janky too because we're not fully side on with camera angles or anything, but because you have that press down, then the hips are going to have to rise quite a bit more. So you're going to be at this angle, then you bend the knees, and you then kick your toes to the bar. Something like that, okay? It's probably not that extreme, but just so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so what are the differences here? The main thing I want to point out, right, is whilst it might seem harder to lift the legs all the way up there, both are currently achieving a toaster bar, okay? But they're going about it in two not very different ways, but there's definitely different forces being applied. So, the movement standard is toes to bar. We want to get our toes up to touch the bar. And in the blue image, what we can see here is this really big closing up and compressing, but we are only raising the legs or the toes to the bar, right? The hips are staying as low as they possibly can be. There's a slight angle on the torso for sure. It's not completely flat, but the hips really haven't raised that much from their normal position. And if you consider that a lot of a human's body weight is in the trunk or in the midline, right? So a lot of my weight is going to be from here, my wonderful peachy bum, all the way up to my chest, that whole midline, hips and torso. Then the more I have to move that, the more energy it's going to take. We can agree it takes energy to move mass, right? So the first we're going to draw out is the difference in hip height for these two guys. Oh, I've just realized my red dude has lost his legs. Let's give him some legs back so he's still touching the bar, right? There we go. So here's going to be the height of the hips for the blue guy. Now take a look at the red. Okay, that's going to be the distance they've moved. So if the red guy was still hanging straight, he's going to be down here at position 1. But now that he's performed this movement, he's at the top of the toaster bar, they're all the way up here. Now, that's a significant distance to have to move the hips or to move the torso, because it carries a lot of weight, like we discussed, right? The majority of the weight is going to be in that midline and torso. Now, if it takes energy to move that mass that height, then our dude in red is exerting a lot more energy to be able to get his toes to the bar compared to the blue, because the blue's keeping the hips nice and low, the midline is low, it's not really moving that much at all. It's just the legs he's moving up, right? So that's going to be the main point in terms of efficiency there. Why would you spend all that energy to bring those hips up super high when all you need to do is get the toes to the bar? They're both achieving the same end goal, but one is using a lot less energy, or at least displacing a lot less mass. He's not having to move as much mass as far to achieve the same goal. So that's going to be the first point. The second point in terms of why it's so difficult and so much more energy is exerted to perform the version in red. He's lost his legs again. This is absolutely tragic for the poor guy. There we go. Is going to be the way in which you produce that force. So I can talk about the kip swing and the arch position for this in another video if this is well received, but just looking at the top position for now, let's take a look at the angle of the arms of the two athletes. Okay, so if this is going to be my vertical line, which is by no means vertical because I just drew it with my finger, okay, and then I'll pull out a blue pen to make this extra easy to see. We've got a minimal press down, a slight press down from our blue character, so that's going to be the angle there. So that's the angle of which has been created by pressing down on the bar, and that's the angle from the shoulder to the bar, right? Now if we go to our red guy right now, who's going to be like all the way out here, that is a bigger distance to move, but he's also had to press that amount of force down into the bar and through the shoulder to try and get this separation, this angle here from the bar, which takes a lot of force. I mean, dang, if you keep going the same way and you come all the way up to 90 degrees, that's going to be like a hell of a lot of force. We know that we can all agree that a front lever takes a ridiculous amount of force and tension to be able to hold position, not only in the hollow position in the midline, but just on the shoulder. You're basically counterbalancing your whole body weight out through the shoulder. So as a term of magnitude, we want to try and make this angle as small as possible, right? Because if you're hanging straight down instead, so let's go back to pink, you're hanging straight down here, you've just got the force of gravity acting straight down on you, whereas if you're out at 90 degrees instead, you've got the force of gravity acting across that lever, okay? If that doesn't make sense, basically just think it's much easier to dead hang underneath the bar than it is to be in a front lever position, right? So that's going to be the main point that I'm trying to get at here, is it's all about efficiency and how you apply that force. If you need to get your toes to the bar, get your toes to the bar, but you don't need to lift your hips and your torso at all, or then over fatigue the shoulder by creating unnecessary angles, okay? And at the end of the day, that's also horizontal movement. Look how much further back our red guy is compared to our blue guy, and we want a vertical motion, so why spend excess energy moving horizontally when we want to move vertically? I'm going to wrap it up just there for this one, guys. Hopefully that makes a bit more sense. The only other thing that I can point out is you're going to say, well, why do I find this version so much more difficult? Well, one, you're never going to be as attractive as me anyway, so you're never going to look quite like this, okay? I'm only joking. There's plenty of beautiful people out there, and I'm not beautiful by any means. But there's going to be a couple of things that you need to think about. One is going to be hamstring flexibility, okay? Having that straight leg does require some flexibility in there, and that's okay. We can have a slight bend there. That's not going to be the end of the world. I am by no means the most flexible person, but I have enough to be able to achieve these. Second thing that's going to be overlooked is going to be our rectus femoris muscle and other hip flexors, which close the hip or flex the hip, which is the movement that needs to happen to get this angle here, right? You're going from an extended hip and you're coming up to a closed one, so it's going to be the hip flexors responsible for that, among other things, but you need to develop that strength. So things like pike pulses or anything that helps lift the leg up and flex the hip are going to be your friend in this. And then it also comes all the way back down to your hollow position. The midline and the trunk has to transfer energy from your kip swing to lift the legs up, but then it also really needs to compress down as much as possible and act in pulling those legs and the pelvis up to get those toes to the bar. So you're going to need a super strong midline, flexible hamstrings, and strong hip flexors to be able to perform it this way. But if you can achieve them, then you're going to save your shoulders from a world of pain, right? Your shoulders are doing way less work now. There's hardly any force going through them compared to being all the way out here, and that is how you're going to be able to get into those much larger numbers of toes to bar, with a few other things in there. But if you think you can get close to 30 reps now before your midline maybe starts to fry out, but your shoulders are still fine. And then you can even revert back to the really big press down and rely on the shoulders for another 20 reps, and you're up towards 50. Hope that makes sense, guys. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions or you prefer more of this kind of content. Hope you enjoyed it, and as always, have a good one. Catch you later, team.